we're going live, literally. This is the SPR Betting Roundtable. We're usually shooting Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We got a lot on the slate, guys. We got Donnie Rightside, Mark Lathrop, Ian Cameron, and Ed Fang. Let's get right into it. A lot of betting action. Let's start off with the MLB card. Donnie Rightside, what are you liking on today's card?
Excellent. Today, I thought we'd get to that a little bit later. Just my introduction to Major League Baseball. I know a lot of people that have followed out there, and I really appreciate it. And just to say about what this conference overall is, I get more enjoyment out of me meeting most of you guys than any of you meeting me. Trust me on that. And I just, honest to God, wanted to say thank you for everybody coming down, SPR, the whole family, the Roundtable. They've invited me in over the past couple months, and again, it's a lot of credit to them for putting this on. I just wanted to say thank you, and meeting everybody here. Everybody's been so nice, and we hope to do it again soon, obviously, as well, too.
Absolutely.
But Major League Baseball cards, what everyone's want to talk to. The bet box last night was live. It was popping. It was Minnesota. It was Cincinnati. We partied. But the false flag environment that I like to call betting against the public, going against the numbers are running. As you know me, from a philosophy standpoint, less is more usually. Hit a lot of totals through in the first half of the season. Now switching over to the dogs. We're going to look at a couple today. I don't have anything picked out quite yet. But as we go along with the roundtable, we'll certainly start that as well.
Okay. And Mark Lathrop, he does a great piece on SBR picks. It's a great read. I recommend it every morning on the baseball card, giving out his best picks. Do you have one today, Mark?
Right. I do the MLB Picks of the Day segment for SBR. I like to say that I pretty much create the content that you read in the bathroom for SBR. I'm not a video guy. I don't have the charisma to do that. But I do have a pick today. I use Fangraphs a lot for my stats. I recommend everybody to look up that site. It's a great site. And I'm looking at the Seattle over today. They're going up against Danny Duffy, who's getting a lot of steam. But Danny Duffy gives up 278 against right-handers. So Seattle does very well against pitchers who give up hits against right-handers because their fringe guys are righties and their superstars are lefties. So the total is at an 8.5. A little name recognition with Felix Hernandez, maybe pushing that total a little lower when he's given up 3 or 4 runs a game. So I'm going to be on the Seattle over tonight at the bet box.
Yeah, it looks like Bet Online right now is hanging an 8.5.
Yep.
It was at 9, bet down a little bit lower, so you get a half a run extra here. And guys, I'm sorry for not letting you get a little introduction like Donnie had. If you want to take a minute, Mark, and say anything, or Ian?
Yeah, I got my start at SB Nation site. Field goals, a lot of people get their start on SB Nation sites. You're going to write for free for a little bit. But gave me some writing samples to send in to Zach back there, and they picked me up. I've been writing for SBR for 2.5 years now.
I guess you guys know me from yesterday. Had a lot of fun getting up here, meeting all you guys. Thanks to everyone for having me down. And I'm not stepping off this round table until Ian Cameron sings us a song today.
Oh, now you put the pressure on.
Yep, that's right.
Good one. We got Ian's mic working right now. Ian, can you talk a little bit?
Nope.
Testing, 1, 2. There we go, we're good. All right, back at it. Listen, I'm here, a big part of the reason why I'm here actually is because my interest in sports betting really stems from 2 guys in the room. I mean, well, I don't see Morency anywhere. I think he had too much partying and fun last night. But Morency was a guy that was on Hardcore Sports Radio about 10 years ago, 2007. I've been a sports fan my whole life. I remember watching Joe Carter's home run in the '93 World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Terrible home run.
In my family room.
Terrible
Popsy.
Come on, stop, dude. Stop. Worst memory in sports.
Just at that age, I was like 8 years old at the time. But I comprehend sports, was into it, was enjoying it. I had a thrill watching it. And eventually I got to the point in 2007 where I heard Hardcore Sports Radio, this guy Morency just losing his shit like we all know he does, as you saw yesterday, just going off and ripping teams that he's lost money on. And basically it started to get that interest like, wow, sports betting, huh? Well, I know sports. I love sports. Maybe I'll give this a shot. So I was basically betting for 5 years. Doing stupid stuff, though. The stuff that you usually do when you don't have experience at sports betting. Let's do 18 parlays and bang our head against the wall and lose pretty much every single one of them. Let's do that all the time. Let's, bet big favorites. But it got to the point where in 2008, I got a little more serious about it. I found some good sites for sports betting and sports handicapping, including sportsmemo.com, which is where I am now as a handicapper. I was a client of Teddy Covers for a few years, met him down in Vegas. He was impressed with the knowledge and the insight I had and said, "Have you ever considered being a handicapper?" And I honestly answered no at the time. I had no interest, or I hadn't even a thought at that time that I'd be a handicapper. And lo and behold, I quit a job 8 months before Sports Memo comes to me with an email saying, would you like to join us as a handicapper? And it was a brutal job. It was technical support for cable, television, internet, and phone service, hearing people bitch, 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 bobbity, bop, 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 flapping their gums all the time, when you really, it's nothing that they have a problem with is your fault. But hey, they're coming down on you on the end. So I got out of that job. I was wondering, what am I going to do next? And then Sports Memo is like that little guardian angel that comes down and rescues me. It makes me a handicapper, and I've been with them now for 5 years, since 2012. And here I am today with SBR, a great company who's put on a hell of an event this weekend.
Absolutely. Well said, Ian. And I'll tell you, Ian Cameron, I'm big into niche markets, the smaller markets, more inefficient markets. This is the best CFL handicapper I've ever seen, and we got a game tonight. Do you have an opinion on tonight's game in the CFL?
We do. We've got the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the BC Lions. I bet BC -5.5, released it at -6. It's -7 across the board. Is a team that's 6-1. Off a loss since the beginning of last season. That's straight up and against the spread. They've been a little dicey in the home favorites role, but I'm going back to the fact that the Saskatchewan Roughriders on the road, their offense has been miserable. Kevin Glenn has looked like old man walking, death mourned over on the football field from a quarterback perspective on the road. He's just been dreadful, not able to get the job done. I think that's going to be a tough ask, expecting Saskatchewan to go in there. They have not done well on the road this season. Until that changes, I think you get the superior BC Lions team off a loss, looking to get the job done tonight. So yeah, I laid less than a touchdown with BC. Even at -7, I would still lean that way right now. I think the game goes under the total as well. Under's worth a look here in this football game. We got a Saskatchewan team that has not been able to put up points on the road. BC's been in some high-scoring shootouts. You get a little extra value around 55, 55.5 now with that total. You think you can look under and get some good value there.
Some under tonight in the CFL game.
Yep.
All right. Well, check out the CFL game tonight. And guys, let's get into the NFL Week 1. Donnie, I know you were saying that you had a little opinion on Oakland versus Tennessee on the Sunday slate Week 1. Where are you looking about going on that one?
Yeah, I mean, from an overall betting perspective, earlier in the season, I do like to pick on the public a little bit. A lot of people know from the services I provide, and also my overall philosophy is, in the first couple weeks of the season, baseball included, college basketball included, NFL included, I like for them to show me as opposed to what I think is going to happen. Because if you take a look over the summer, you're going to get a lot of press clippings. Everybody's up on Oakland. Talked to a couple people here as well. Why is the Oakland team total hovering around 9.5 at this point when they're obviously the hot team in the West? Then you say they're going to come over and play Tennessee. That line is -1 at this point. If I'm just looking for the money's coming in from the perspective, and overall where Oakland is such a high-class team where everybody's looking for them to make a run at the Super Bowl this year. The hot team, Marshawn Lynch, very flashy. Something sniffs a little bit with that -1 right now at Tennessee. If you're asking me right now who I would play, it would be the Tennessee Titans all day Week 1 right now.
And Donnie, this is a great example of shopping the lines. We look across the board. UWager hanging -1 on the Raiders. Bet Online hanging a pick'em, and Intertops hanging Tennessee -1. So you can, whatever team you're looking to bet, you can find it across the board. Intertops, Bet Online, and UWager all taking different opinions on that one. Ian, you had something on this total, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair here. We got the Raiders and the Titans in this game. I like both offenses. I think the Titans have one of the better offensive lines right now in the NFL. I really do believe that. I think it's going to afford Marcus Mariota a chance to really show off his ability and his explosive playmaking ability as a dual-threat quarterback, being able to run with the ball and being able to throw it. I think the defense is well going to take some steps forward for the Tennessee Titans. There's one fly in the ointment with this football team this season, is that Mike Mularkey's the head coach. I don't know if that's a guy I trust, or I'm going to go to war with him to try to win a Super Bowl. But nevertheless, as long as he doesn't screw things up too much, I think there's going to be a lot of positive things from the Titans this year, especially on offense. I think they're going to be able to put up points, and there are still some suspect items with this Oakland team defensively, particularly in the secondary. We know Khalil Mack up front can get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. We know Derek Carr back at quarterback with a boatload of weapons to work with, going to be able to put up points. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Of course, you always want to pay attention to weather, certain things like that closer to kickoff, but I think we can get over 51, 51.5. And this would be a high NFL total 10 years ago. Not so much now in the 2017 era. I think we get a high-scoring game there.
All right, guys, and what about the Thursday standalone game? We got KC versus New England. Intertops hanging -7.5 for New England. Bet Online and UWager both hanging 8s. Any opinion on this one?
I mean, good luck going against New England in New England, coming back off the championship. We want to roll back just a little bit. Our show right here is very big on the live chat box. So if you have a phone out there, get the live YouTube feed in. I'm just going to rip right through it. Any questions you have, we love to be interactive. It's the reason for the show is you, the gambler, asking us questions, because the same guys that you see up here, we're the same guys in that seat. We were there. There's no dumb question. There's only dumb answers, as we like to say up here. So going back, Tomarino Tomor said the Titans secondary is garbage. I think the value in that game is on the over. With the Raiders offensive line, I think Carr will torch that team, but the Raiders defense is garbage too. Any rebuttals over there for that one?
No, I agree. I hated Oakland's defense, and you brought up their pass rush. They were awful at pass rush last year with Khalil Mack. So there's a lot of other guys not doing anything on that defense. So just supporting what you guys are.
So Drew, back to that Thursday night game with Kansas City. I think 5 times I was hanging a 9 on Kansas City. So I like them in kind of a teaser play because you cross that important number of 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Make sure to shop around for sure. And Ian, Philadelphia, Washington. Washington minus 2.5. Total 48, 48.5. Looks like Intertops is down to 2. You have an opinion on Philly, Washington, week 1?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to look the Philadelphia side in this game. I'm not a big believer of the Washington Redskins this year. It's a tougher schedule. They've got question marks with Kirk Cousins. You know, Carson Wentz, I think, is going to take a step forward for this team. I think Philadelphia really paid attention to shoring up this defense, specifically with what they did in the draft. They really knew they had to shore up that side of the football. They've gone a long way forward to doing that. You know, we're obviously going to have to expect big things from this football team this year. They're to be a little bit better and just take advantage of a Washington Redskins team that I just don't think I trust in the favorites role right now, and end up in a situation where I think they're going to struggle. The schedule is going to catch up to them. I think defensively in the secondary, Josh Norman, what a bad year I thought he had last year. I mean, this is a guy that's been looked at as an elite cornerback in the past year in the NFL, and I thought last year he was a disaster for extended stretches. Just did not perform well. It's like he got the big pay and, oh, well, now we can slack off and just do whatever we want. So he needs to play a hell of a lot better this year, Josh Norman. But overall, don't like this Washington team a lot, and I'm willing to bet against them as a favorite right here in week 1.
All right. Well, Donnie, we have anything else on the live chat questions?
Yeah, the big man on campus chiming in. Wanted to be here in spirit, but he is here on the chat box. Says, Ian, that secondary, I mean, it's no surprise if you watch our shows, the team that I root for. It's pretty easy to see in the background in my desk area. It is the Philadelphia Eagles. The one thing we struggle with over the past couple years, number one, we can beat the Giants. So if you're a Giants fan, I'm sorry. We're going to beat you again 2 times this year. But the Washington Redskins and Kirk Cousins have our number. It's game 1. It's a bad spot to me for the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. I know I'm going to disagree with you on this one, but I can't be the homer and say we're going to take it down. Carson Wentz is fantastic. If you see the cornerback depth right now of the Philadelphia Eagles, Terrell Pryor is going to have a game 1. We can't stop anybody in the secondary. When head coach Doug Peterson says we're going to bring people in to get competition at the cornerback spot, you know you're in trouble right off the bat. Good secondary from a safety perspective, but our cornerbacks in that division, Odell Beckham, Des Bryant, better get home to the quarterback with that front 7, that's for sure.
All right, boys. Anything else in the NFL before we go to the college slate?
Yeah, I got to pick on first half Seattle game. I'm glad a bunch of guests, they've been great. I said it's been okay, to follow your own team because that's the one you know the best. And I've been following Pete Carroll and their camp, and they're really going to stress the run game this year. And so I like them to at least attempt it in the first half in Green Bay. So we got a combination of the situation and the number. They're hanging a 24.5 out there for that Green Bay game. So I like the under, as the first half's going to just fly by as they try to establish the run game. Little Eddie Lacy revenge spot, so I think they're going to be feeding the ball. The clock's going to run. I wouldn't be surprised if that game goes under.
Okay. Anything else on the NFL slate? And keep in mind, we'll have questions after we talk about college football as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm high on the Tennessee Titans. I've bet them over 8.5 wins, a couple AFC and Super Bowl futures as well with that team. I think they're going to be a team that's going to offer value going into the season. Cleveland Browns, I think, are going to be a point spread team this year. I mean, when you look at I know the quarterback situation, what are they going to do with Cody Kessler? Is it going to be Kaiser? Is it going to be, God forbid, Brock Osweiler? We don't know right now with this Cleveland team. But I'll tell you what, Hugh Jackson, you give him the time to work with a quarterback, install a game plan, install a scheme to try to accentuate that quarterback's strengths. and qualities, and I think he's going to be able to do that with whoever's the starting quarterback. And what's going to be good for whoever the starting quarterback is in Cleveland is they've got an elite offensive line. They really do. I like Thomas on the left side. I like J.C. Treader coming in from the Green Bay Packers. And I like the fact that they'll be able to run the football, take pressure off whoever it is. It's going to be throwing the rock for the Cleveland Browns this season. Now, defensively, there's a lot of holes that need to be filled still. They're working, it's a work in progress there, but there are pieces on that defense, albeit young, that have the potential to produce and have a ton of upside for this team. So, you know, I actually think they got a chance to get up and over the 4.
I think they've got a chance to go up and over the 4.5 wins this season as well. But what I like about the Cleveland Browns, you know, is the fact that even though their quarterback situation's a mess, you could say it on paper, it looks that way. They've got a good mind in Hugh Jackson in terms of working with offense. They've got an offensive line that's one of the best in the NFL as far as I'm concerned, and a run game that they should be able to take pressure off whoever the quarterback is for this team. Probably going to be, I think, a team that is going to be undervalued. Again, this is a buy low situation. It's a team that just hit rock bottom last year on the 1-15 season. You're going to get some decent prices to back the Browns, and I think they're going to be a positive return ATS-wise this season.
All right, good stuff, Ian. And guys, got an update here. We just got a word from Bet Online. IFBC is actually making a market here. Clay Travis talking about the Supreme Court ruling, and they said by Monday they will have odds up on that ruling. So we're actually making markets here at the IFBC. Good stuff. All right, guys, let's move to the college football slate. And smartest guy in the room here, Ed Fang. College football win totals, what are you looking at?
Yeah, you know, so one that I'm looking at is Alabama. Their number's at 11 right now. I got them about, you know, 38% that you're not going to lose that bet after week 1. They're favored against Florida State. And, you know, I project them about 10 wins. And part of that, I think, is a little high just because of a little bit of a luck factor last year. They had 12, I think, over double-digit special teams defensive touchdowns last year. That is an unreproducible number this year. Part of why I think my number is a little bit high on them. And, you know, I mean, 11 is kind of a special number because there's no room for error for a team to go over that one. So that's something I'm looking at in college football win totals. Yeah,
when you get really high like that or really low on the other end, it makes for it a tough bet to either go over on the high number like that.
I mean, it should make you feel a little sick to go under Nick Saban any year. And it should, you know, but I think the numbers are on that side, and I think if you just think about a win total of 11, it really suggests the under.
Absolutely. Playing an SEC West schedule plus Florida State to kick it off.
Well, that's another thing that makes me queasy, because I don't know if the SEC West is what it has been in the past. I expect Auburn to be good. I think Auburn could actually contend for a national title. I don't know where LSU is going. I think the vector on that team is going down when you hire a coach that had such an awful record at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a mess. Mississippi State's probably all right. So that's another reason I don't like this, because I just don't see the strength in the SEC West. Of course, Clay Travis' Tennessee team is going to help me out there too, right? Put those guys under. So yeah, that kind of goes against it a little bit, but I still do like that under.
And Ed, you know, part of this show is having disagreeing opinions, and I actually kind of like the under in Auburn this year, mainly because I know you're a numbers guy. I'm more of a watch the game film guy. In Gus Malzahn's offense, the zone read, without the mobility at the quarterback position, I know the kid coming over from Baylor, he can run a little bit, but he's sure no Cam Newton and not a Nick Marshall. Right. So do you worry about that affecting how Auburn's offense runs? And especially they lost the OC. Yeah,
I mean a little bit. Okay. But I mean, I think Malzahn, I mean, if Stidham is anything like what we saw in a couple games at Baylor, they're going to be real good. Auburn's defense has been really good over the past, I think, 2 seasons. They were definitely pretty good. They held that team together last year. And it's a blue blood program that has talent. They always have talent. And it's just a matter of whether the coach can get them to play together. Okay. So, you know, I'm you know, numbers-wise, they're 6th in my numbers, and that's not even accounting for a blue chipper coming in as a transfer at the quarterback position. Right. So that's why I think they can, you know, I mean, that's a program that can really mix it up with the best of them when they're clicking on all cylinders.
And we'll know pretty early because they play Clemson early in the season.
Yeah, so and Clemson's loaded. I mean, I know they lost Deshaun Watson, but they have a ton of talent coming back.
Yeah, that will be an interesting one for sure. Well, Donnie, let's get you into this. I know you had opinion on the small schools. the Miami, Ohio Redhawks. Which way are you looking to go with them?
I think the Miami Ohio Redhawks are a buy-on team in the MAC East this year. And if you know me, I like the lower level. Same with Drew. It's where we clicked right away from these lower level conferences, Sun Belt, AAC. But in the MAC teams, I'm going to look at the MAC East, Miami, Ohio. Also think Toledo is going to come out of the West in the MAC. The one interesting thing, we saw the way, I believe it was what, maybe 0-6 Miami opened up last year?
Yeah, 0-6, then 6-0. I think it was the first
6-0,
time ever.
lost by 1 point in the bowl game to Mississippi State, I believe it was. So one of those buy-on teams, really good quarterback with Ragland. 4 out of 5 of the offensive linemen coming back. Very strong defense, good coaching staff. Buy-on team in the MAC for me, and that for sure. But everybody knows my love affair with Kent State. If you watch Kent State football, you know, God love you there because they burn your eyes out. But we're going to talk a little bit of value maybe down the road on Kent State this year.
All right, we'll come right back to that. And Ian, what about an opinion on college football win totals or anything else?
Yeah, just going back to Rhett Lashley, talking about him, good luck with UConn. I mean, here's a program that's had no history of running an up-tempo spread offense, and you're going there with minimal skill position talent trying to get that thing off the ground. Good luck. Have fun with that, Rhett. Bang your head against the wall trying to get that offense going this season. Going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think NC State is a team in the ACC that's going to have a very impressive season to me. You saw great improvement from that team last year. Great performance in their bowl game. Dave Doran starting to get things going there. They've got continuity on offense because Ryan Finley's the quarterback. Boise State's old offensive coordinator, Eli Drinkwitz, came with Finley to NC State. So it's a situation now where you've got continuity. You're going to have playmakers on this team. I think the defense is going to be much better. And you know what? People talk about the schedule. Oh, they got to deal with Clemson. And oh, they got to deal with Florida State and Louisville. I get that. I understand that. But it's a team that covered the number in defeat last year against Clemson and Florida State. They were able to hang tough NC State against those two squads. They're an improved team this year. So I think NC State can get over that 7.5 win total this season. Not even crazy to sprinkle a little bit on them to win the division or even the conference as well. I think NC State does have upside, a high ceiling, and if they can maybe steal a win or two against those big 3 powers in that conference, who knows what the future holds there for the Wolfpack.
Okay, and Ed, want to come to you about a game week 1 early on. Rice versus Stanford. You know a little bit about these two schools.
I do.
Stanford laying 31 in Sydney, Australia.
Yes. So I think that's, well, let's talk a little bit about these teams. I got Stanford 7th in my preseason numbers. I think they're going to be good. They got a lot of guys coming back. They have a program history. Kind of had a down year last year. Had some cornerback issues. Really got beat pretty bad by Washington State. Not a big fan of the coach, but he does win football games. I think they could be really good. Rice is terrible. They're terrible every year. I like to use them in my example as the program that's just never going to be better than FBS average. They went 10-3 one year, won a bowl game over Central Michigan, and they weren't even FBS average that year by my numbers. So it's a mismatch. 31's a big number. But I'm not confident enough to take Rice with those points.
Yeah, it will be interesting if the front 7 or 8 for Rice can't stop the run for Stanford.
Right.
It could get ugly early.
That is true. That is true.
And David Bailiff, they're the coach, right?
Yeah.
Either way, when you stream the Rice games, it's amazing to see how little people are in those stands, man. There is a tough time recruiting there for Rice. But well, guys, value-wise, Donnie. Kent State, where are you seeing the value?
Just a little bit of betting perspective from like Kent State and the MAC, just some spots that you want to look at. It's very hard to bet a team that obviously doesn't get a lot of action on it, and rightfully so over the past couple years, not a very good football team. I don't bet that much in the early weeks of the season, so I try to pick some shots and maybe some targets a little bit later in the college football season. Just looking at Kent State from a betting perspective, they're going to go play at Clemson game 1. And if, Ed's talking about Clemson, how good they're going to be, maybe the point spread's not even enough in that game. One of those shutout games where they just show up. The kids are happy to play in that ball game, and Clemson's playing their 5th stringers by the end of the game, 55-0, 55-7. They come home for a game against Howard, which they should win. But again, who's going to care about Kent State and Howard? Very light, probably betting action game. Nobody cares about. Going on the road to Marshall, they'll probably get beat again. Then they go to Louisville with Lamar Jackson, another one of those games that might be a runaway game. But then they come back week 5 and play the Buffalo Bulls at home, where everybody's going to see the scores that Kent State probably got lit up for over the past couple weeks. Maybe get a little bit of value on betting a team that's not very good in a good spot at home. Again, against the Buffalo Bulls, who as Gabe Morency said, not a very good team either as well. So look for Kent State in some spots that you could pick and choose from later in the season that you want to take a look at, that maybe some value that maybe wouldn't be there in the beginning of the season. That to me would be one of them.
Okay, Donnie, and right back at you. Do you have an angle on New Mexico State, Arizona State, week 1? Arizona State laying 24. What would they open this total
I don't know,
at?
99.5 in that game. If anybody watches New Mexico State football, it's a fun brand of football, but not unless you have the unders. They have very good football players, bad defense, and a lot of the teams they play in that conference in Arizona State. I don't know if Manny Wilkins is going to be there, but they should be able to run wild with the running backs in that game for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to be in the mid-80s, if not higher.
Getting back to Kent State for a second, plus 38.5 against Clemson is interesting to me because we've got Clemson breaking in a new quarterback. Of course, Watson gone. It's up in the air who it's going to be right now. It's a battle that's ongoing at the moment. That's an unsettled situation. I know the defense still bringing back a ton of players from last year. Going to be good again on that side of the football, no question about it. But spot-wise, it's dubious. They've got Auburn the next week, a little bit of a look-ahead situation potentially. And the one thing about Kent State is they're going to show up on the defensive side of the football. Yes, it's been nails on a chalkboard. It's been awful at times watching this offense try to move the football, try to get first downs and put up points. But what I do think they can do is at least hang around, gut it out, dig in a little bit defensively, get a stop or two here and there. And if you're Clemson, and you're up by 30, 35 in the fourth quarter, are you going to keep the starters out for the entire game when you got Auburn on deck? Risk an injury that you don't need or want? Potentially not. So, Dabo Swinney might be a guy, let's get these guys the hell out. We're up by 30, 35. We don't need to prove any more of a point. So it's one of those spots where with Clemson, especially with some transition going into the new season, particularly at the quarterback spot, you give Kent State plus 38.5, and if they show up and compete, they just might be able to hang inside a number like that.
All right, guys, before we get to questions, I want to throw out 2 high-profile games. And speaking of high-profile, we got a Texas A&M high-profile person in the room, so we got to bring up Texas A&M UCLA. Intertops hanging minus 2.5 UCLA. Bet online, same thing, minus 2.5 plus a little juice. U-Wager minus 3. So we got Gig'em Aggies heading to UCLA. Any opinion on this one?
I guess we have one that came in surprisingly from the big man on campus, ready to go since Johnny was here. So I'll read it to you there. It seems like he does like, not sure about UCLA can exploit their run issues. Hubernek's a good, solid quarterback, and Trayvon Williams, Christian Kirk are all back. Offense is really solid, and he's not solid. That Rosen is going to come back since he might be struggling in camp with his injuries. So the big man, maybe an A&M backer here for that.
It's A&M. A&M. This isn't working now?
A&M or pass for Ian, I think he was saying.
It is, yeah. There we go. It is A&M or pass for me. You know what? The problem for Jim Moore Jr. is he had an opportunity when USC was not as good a few years ago. Didn't make enough of that opportunity. I mean, UCLA, they had a golden chance really to make inroads in terms of recruiting in the LA and California area. Didn't get the job done. The talent's never lived up throughout his whole tenure here with the UCLA Bruins. And now you've got USC, expected to win the Pac-12 and be a national title contender. So USC's near the top of the mountain again, specifically in this conference. You've missed the opportunity. There's been no progression whatsoever, none, zero from Rosen at the quarterback position. That's a concern for me. Defensively, we've seen this team take bad penalties too. Real stupid penalties, unnecessary roughness, 15 yards, objectionable conduct, say something to the ref after you don't get a call to go your way. That's coaching. That's an issue with the coaching at that point, when your players are lacking that discipline, lacking that focus. I'm anti-UCLA, and the fact now that we're looking at this current number here in this game where it is really a dubious line to me. 3, even 3.5 now with UCLA starting to show up as a home favorite here. I could only look toward the Texas A&M side catching the plus points.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game numbers-wise. Texas A&M's been 8-5 the last 3 seasons, and that's not good enough for that program. But you got to remember they play in the SEC West, and over those last 3 years, I think the SEC West has been better than what they're going to be this year. So I have them 20th in my preseason numbers. I think that just reflects the strength they have gone through the last 4 years. UCLA has been one of the biggest disappointments in college football the last 2 years. A lot of expectations, clearly some injury factors that are affecting them there. But numbers actually like Texas A&M by 1 on the road. Definitely agrees with what Ian is saying. Need to do a little bit more research before I would place a bet on that, but that's what the numbers say.
I got a question following up on that. Do you guys bring into your handicapping maybe taken down the element of the road team having maybe discount because it's week 1, so they can go kind of at an earlier date, get used to the atmosphere, so to say, instead of being rushed from maybe like week 3 to week 4. Does that factor in?
I think that's true. I mean, you look at some of these brutal travel spots that could exist potentially going into week 1 of a season. They're not as big of a deal. You've got that extra time, that extra opportunity to make your way out to a location that maybe is going to rack up your frequent flyer miles, so to speak. And you look at Hawaii, for instance, going to UMass, a number that I think is unbelievable, that you can get pick 'em -1 with Hawaii. I know it's a team that's got to travel to UMass, but again, week 1, that shouldn't be as big of a factor. And if anybody should be used to traveling, it should be Nick Rolovich's Hawaii Warriors team. Holy goodness, how many miles did they travel last year, especially
Sydney,
with the early
Australia,
game in Sydney, Australia? I know, Mike. Yeah, I mean, they were everywhere, these guys, just doing a great job with the flying everywhere, left and right. So they should be used to it. And the fact that now they get to start the season fresh here, clean slate, improved offense. That offense really got in gear. I like the quarterback that he's got to work with there at Hawaii. The defense wasn't good last year, but they've got more experience, and those guys should be better on that side of the ball this year. And UMass is dreadful. They're absolutely one of the worst teams in the FBS this season. I don't doubt that they won't be again this season. Ford, the quarterback, never impressed me last year for this UMass team. Very pedestrian at times on offense. It's too bad because Mark Whipple has had success in the past in other stops, but it's been a hard time recruiting with UMass. It's been a hard time getting any sort of traction with this football program, and I think in week 1 they're going to be up against Hawaii. I think are in a flat-out better team here to begin the season.
Yeah, it's tough for the Minutemen going into independent life for sure. Well, guys, we're going to take a couple questions, but just real quick, FSU, Alabama, any opinion as far as laying the 7 with Nick Saban in Alabama?
Great game to watch, but I'll be sitting on the sidelines. I'll be watching it, though. It's going to be a fascinating game. Let's see what Francois, everybody's saying. DeAndre Francois going to have a big-time year. Well, here's his chance to prove it. Alabama in a big spot, Saturday night, ABC television. Let's go.
Okay. Well, good stuff, guys. Matty Ice or Sophie, do we have any questions online or questions around the room?
I actually have one future I wanted to mention. If I'm going to bet a college football future, I want some bang for my buck. You know, it wasn't long ago that the Oregon Ducks were near the top in college football. You can get them 120-1 right now, national championship. You know, the offense, I think, is going to be good with Justin Herbert. Willie Taggart comes in, a guy that's had success in previous stops. And what I like is that as bad as the defense was, and it was god-awful, bad tackling, poor tackling, broken tackles, poor coverage in the secondary, receivers getting behind these guys left and right all the time last year. It never stopped for Oregon. But there's a guy now that's going to bring in his broom, clean up this mess, sweep it aside. That man is Jim Leavitt, the defensive coordinator brought in by this Oregon Ducks team. I think he's a guy that's did a tremendous job in just 2 years as a DC with Colorado. Look at the improvement that Buffalo's team had on the defensive side of the football. Points per game way down each season that Leavitt was there running that defense. I think he can have that same kind of impact here with the Oregon Ducks. Make this team better on that side of the football. You know, they're going to be able to put up points, going to be able to light up the scoreboard, just get a few stops. I think Jim Leavitt's going to go a long way to making this a better defense. And 120-1 with the Oregon Ducks, I saw enough value to pull the trigger. If I'm going to bet a college football futures early, it's got to be some good bang for my buck, and I think I've got that a little bit with Oregon.
All right, so we got a question.
Drew, I got a question for Ed while we're passing the mic around. I'm looking at Western Michigan getting 28 against USC, and they were 13-1 last year. So, I mean, it's good use of the preseason rankings. Where did Western Michigan end up on your ranks? And I'm putting you on the spot, but I think you have it pulled up.
Yeah, I can pull it up. I mean, so just thinking about Western Michigan before I pull up the number, they lost all that talent on offense. They lost PJ Fleck. I mean, like generational talent for once in a generation type players for Western Michigan. Maybe a team that you need to make some subjective adjustments for preseason, but let's see, where are they?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the USC regression story this year.
Cool.
I've heard some stories about Clay Helton. He comes up to my neck of the woods, plays golf. He's got recruits, moms sending him, naked pictures, and he's adjusting. I think, maybe a little sophomore slump issue there, to be a USC head coach.
Yeah, I got Western Michigan 43rd highest in the MAC. We'll see if they can really be the best team in the MAC. Yeah. And I agree with you on Clay Helton. I think he still has a lot to prove. Can Sam Darnold do it? I mean, and maybe it's one of these things. As long as he has Sam Darnold, he's going to be good for a couple years, and then the program drops off if he's not a great coach.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, another issue is USC is as public can be. You know,
lines moved from 24 to 28 already.
hard to find value with those teams.
Yeah.
Got a question right here, Mark?
I do. For Ian.
Mark, good to see you.
Nice to see you. I do love your Oregon play, by the way, as well. That's a great value play. And if you take a look at Willie Taggart, the head coach, his USF teams have scored 30 or more points 16 games in a row. So no offense lacking there. Question I have for you, my friend here is a grad from West Point, and he wants to know, what about Army this year after the big year they had last year?
I think Army's going to be a pretty solid football team this year. It's going to be another team that I think's got that opportunity to cover some numbers this season. They took major steps forward last year, no question about that. And I think there's going to be some positive for them to be a money-making team this season. I think there's good things going on with that football team right now. You know, they're an independent, so they get to fly under the radar a little bit. But I'll be looking to bet on this Army team a little bit. I think they'll be pretty solid.
All right, good stuff. And we had one more question right here in the stands, in the seats.
In the stands.
And in the stands, you got to treat it like a sport here, a sporting venue.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say thanks. I love the Roundtable show. You guys have great areas of expertise.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Thanks.
You know, you're all versatile in your own areas, and I think it's great. You know, you provide great information to bettors out there. So I just want to say thank you. I just want to give you a quick update on the Mariners game. You mentioned earlier Felix Hernandez is out with bicep tendonitis, so Marco Gonzalez is going to take his place, lefty, making his Mariners debut.
Even better.
Line's still
Breaking news, courtesy of Josh here.
Thank you.
It's a SBR update.
Over still 8.5. Leaning towards minus 113 is what I've got. But I had a question, just throwing it back to the baseball card, if I may. I was curious about today's line on Detroit versus Baltimore. Wade Miley on the mound, bullpen pitcher in Drew Verhagen. Interesting total at 11. I've got minus 103, leaning towards the over. Maybe your thoughts on that at all?
I would give that to Mark, Donnie,
Well,
or Ed.
let's look at Miley. He's, you know, and I throw out some stats that are crazy, but you know, he's 5.25 FIP. You know, that's that fielding independent pitching statistic I use instead of ERA.
Great stuff.
You know, it doesn't. You know, your defense can't screw you up and your errors and all that stuff. And 5.25 is a run above average. So he's not a guy that I'm going to tail. And at any point, let me bring up his splits. He's allowing 305 against right-handers. So when you have a guy like that, he's got a hole, you know, in his talent level, and a team's going to be able to take advantage of that. I think our site's still saying the opposing starter is undecided, but I mean, it doesn't matter. And the other thing is, when you see something like that, okay, he's giving up 305 to righties. Boil it down to the edge you're playing. You know, play the team total on the opposing team. You know, get the bullpens out. You know, boil it down to the edge you got. And you know, Gabe talked about props being a way to do that, and that's just kind of how you do it with baseball.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, and I think we got to cut it short for lunch. So this is the SBR Betting Roundtable. If you like the content, please feel free to watch us Wednesdays, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. For Donnie Rightside, Mark Lathrop, Ian Cameron, and Ed Fang, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys, and thank you, SBR.